my name is Elizabeth Wagner. I'm a hand weaver and a textile designer. Welcome to my channel, Illumination. In my last few videos, I've gone through the initial process of tying your warp onto your loom for a weaving project that we're going to make a scarf, a lady's scarf with. And this episode, I want to show you how I get the warp wrapped onto the warp beam in the back of the loom so we can get it tied on to the front of the loom. So the last video I got to the point where I have all my warp ends through my reed, through my heddles, and tied on to this back rod. So at this point we're going to start and we've also taken the chain out of the warp, so the only thing I have left is my knot at the end of the warp. And right now you can take that out as well. We're going to start to shake the warp out so that we can get it onto the back beam and the warp beam. So what I do is I usually pull on the warp. Sometimes I separate it into smaller sections so that I can get it really straightened out, and I give it a few tugs, and you can comb it a little bit if you feel like that helps even out the tension. You're trying to get an even tension on all of the warp ends. So if you take it in smaller sections and kind of make sure there are no tangles, no crisscrosses, and just pull it kind of like someone's long hair that you're trying to straighten out and untangle. Just keep pulling on it and sort of shaking it. And what you can do is pull maybe half of it real tight, and when you let go, obviously it's going to retract a little bit, but you're just trying to get it so that the tension is sort of even. So after you get it sort of straightened out and pulled, I'm going to start cranking with this crank back here to start moving it over the back beam. And I'm going to have to hold my warp because sometimes I get someone to help me so that it doesn't fall off of. Okay, I'm going to stop right there so that you can see that I've cranked it to the point where this metal rod is now sort of sitting on top of the warp beam. And at this point, I'll start to work on the front again, trying to get it straightened out and pulled so that it's even and not tangled. And I just kind of tug on it so that all of these warp ends have the same amount of tension. Now, I'm going to go around the back of the loom because I want to place a piece of cardboard, and I have some corrugated cardboard, it's a rolled up piece, and I want to put it on the warp beam so that when I crank the warp onto the warp beam, this goes in between the layers of warp that are going to be wrapped around. I'm going to go over here and start cranking again. So, sorry about the noise of the crank. I'm going to have to get some oil on that. I'm putting this paper in between the layers of the warp. And the reason for doing that, I'm going to do one complete rotation to get the paper started on there. And the reason why I want to do that is because if you don't put some separator in between the warp as you're cranking it onto the warp beam, the warp ends or the yarn are some of them are going to lay on top of the one underneath, and some of them are going to go in between the warp ends underneath, from one layer to the next. And that's going to cause a variation in the tension that you have. So this keeps all of the warp ends, all the layers as you're rolling it onto that beam, separated so that each layer is on a flat surface. So I'm going to go back around to the front and do the same thing again. Just start pulling, straightening, combing out, pulling, tugging, getting all of the tangled parts untangled. And it's kind of almost like straightening out hair. So you just keep doing that over and over until you get the whole warp wrapped on to the back. And usually I'll go around 2 or 3 times. And then I'll go back and straighten out again. Before you get to the end, what people will do is they'll move the beater so it's leaning up against the front beam or the breast beam. And as they crank the warp onto the back beam, the yarn is going to go through the reed, and any tangles will start to pull the reed up like this, and that would give you the signal to go back to the front and straighten out again. And see, you can see I'm almost to the end. So I'm going to just complete this one wrap, and I'm going to stop there. And just before you get to the end, and I'll see you next time, and we'll finish getting the warp tied onto the front of the loom.